Welcome everyone. Welcome veterans. Welcome VA Claims Insiders. My name is
How's
Charles
everybody doing?
Rosario. Doing pretty good. My name is Charles Rosario, and I'm here with Coach Mitch Lockwood, one of my good buddies and also coworkers. So we're here to have a little bit of talk here for the next hour.
Yeah, welcome everybody. Excited to have you guys here today. Have everybody here. Thank you for your service, veterans. Uh, Happy Wednesday to you. Thanks for spending some time with us today. Today, we're going to discuss specifically some of the easiest claims you can get approved, and we're excited to go over this topic with you today. We'll start at about 5 after, Coach Charles?
Yeah, about 5 after. But first of all, let's see if we can get some of the vets to sound off. Tell me, what branch of service and how long they serve for, and please put it in the chat right down at the bottom. That way, we could actually see where you're coming from and see what branch you served. You want to tell me a
Awesome.
little bit about yourself, Mitch, while we wait, or you want to do that like 5 after
Sure.
as we move forward, so then that way it doesn't get interrupted?
Yeah, no, absolutely, Coach Charles. So, to be short with everyone, I'm an Army veteran. I really mean it. Thank you for your service to everybody. I joined the Army specifically, after September 11th. I felt a calling inside to come serve. My sister was in the National Guard as an air traffic controller, and I felt that calling. I had to come in and serve our country, right? I'm fortunate. I made a career of the Army. I retired this past year. When I retired from the Army, I truly was a little disheartened with the transition and what it looks like for VA disabilities and our compensations. I had a friend that kind of turned me on to VA Claims Insider. I'm used to that direct, when you ask a question, hey, what's the advice? And I wasn't getting that. And when I found VA Claims Insider, I just was that calling. I could not believe what everyone here at VA Claims Insider was doing to help our veteran community. And I was like, man, if I could be so blessed to get to come work here and help bridge that gap for us veterans. And I'm very fortunate to be here with y'all. How about you, Coach Charles?
Well, we're getting close to 5 after, so I want to actually provide that information after the disclaimer, if that's okay. And if you can handle that disclaimer for me, I truly appreciate it. So then that way I can provide, our introduction. We can get on with this live stream.
Yeah, let's do it. So, quick disclaimer to everybody. We are not accredited agents, VSOs, attorneys, or any other entity recognized by the Department of Veterans Affairs, the VA, and we are not affiliated with the VA in any way. VA Claims Insider is an education-based coach and consulting company for disabled veterans exploring eligibility for increased VA disability benefits and who wish to learn more about that process. VA Claims Insider also connects veterans and vetted independent medical professionals in our referral network for medical examinations and independent medical opinions, IMOs, for a wide range of disability conditions.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank everybody for being here. I'm Coach Charles once again, like I repeated. It's been a while since I've done the English live stream. I usually do Spanish. So I want to let everyone know that if you are, a veteran, that, your dominant language is Spanish, we are here to help you. VACI has several Spanish-speaking coaches. So si necesitan nuestra ayuda, por favor, inscríbase a mi página, Charles Rosario, VA Claims Insider, and we'll be more than happy to help you with this process. So with that being said, that was my little disclaimer for the Spanish vets. With that being said, I'm a United States Air Force vet. I went in 1997. I actually got out in late 2000. I ended up participating in a campaign for Kosovo in 1999. When I got out, I ended up transitioning. It took a pause for several years. And just like Mitch, with 9/11 happening in 2001 and figuring out, I felt empty in that aspect and not knowing where to go and where to turn to. And that calling just kept coming and coming. And in 2003, I joined the Army National Guard and ended up actually getting out in 07 and basically did some deployment here for Homeland Security, global war on terrorism. So it was pretty fun. I learned a lot of camaraderie. Just like everybody else, you know, you end up transitioning out to the civilian world, and a lot of this information is not really per se provided so freely. So I was able to find this company by pure miracle, and I've been able to find a place and a calling in the aspect that I've been able to meet other brothers and sisters, you know, with the same mindset, and also looking for that sense of trying to connect their, you know, their disabilities on that quest. So it's been a beautiful journey. I'm still looking to grow. I get to meet beautiful people, my coworkers, other veterans. It's extremely humbling. So for all those people that I've been able to interact with, and you guys have allowed me to be a small portion of your life. I thank you very much. It's extremely humbling, and I'm glad that I'm able to help, and I do it wholeheartedly with a lot of love and passion. So, wear my Air Force blue. So, like I said, once again, for all those veterans that need it in Spanish, por favor, búsqueme, Charlie Rosario, at VA Claims Insider, and let's get it on. Mitch, what we got?
Yeah, so today our topic is going to be on some of the easiest claims you can file. You know, real quick for those veterans who might just be joining us for a first time here, some of the things here at VA Claims Insider I want to make you aware of real quick. You can do a discovery call with us, right? And want to learn more, schedule that. It's a free call with us. The things that we really provide here is strategy, education, and medical evidence. I know you military people love acronyms, so we call it, you know, SAM,
Sam.
right? But you get one-on-one coaching, a strategy session, claim submission help. You know, as far as having your coach there to give you some advice, CMP preparations. That's that compensation and physical exam. We also offer live classes via Zoom 3 times a day. Coffee with the coaches, mental health Monday, CMP prep, elite member question and answers, and specialty classes. For an example, higher level review, sleep apnea, high value claims. So strongly encourage you, if this is your first time here, do the discovery call, see how we might be able to help you out.
I wanted to add one more thing, if that's okay. For the
Yeah,
specialty classes, we also have women's group. So for all those veterans that are women that really want to participate with just the women veterans, because let's say, for example, their stressors may be more personal, we do have women group to actually give you that support. So please tune in, take a look at your vaci.com, vaci1.com, in that aspect, so you can take a look in your elite program how to log into one of those classes. Sorry.
great point, Coach Charles. Good save. Absolutely. Thank you. So let's get into it. When we're done, we'll have some questions and answers at the end. Please, if you have the time to stay with us, we'd love to answer some of your questions. Hey, Charles, the first topic, you know, let's go over tinnitus. Do you want to take that one?
Sure. I'll take over tinnitus. I guess I'm known to be the tinnitus king here, uh, only because of the amount of tinnitus claims that I actually have put forth with a lot of the veterans. Tinnitus is one of those claims that is opens up a lot of doors, and it's also an easy claim to go in. And what I mean easy is basically if you have that, you don't need a lot of evidence, but you need to be able to have an MOS that carries a high exposure category. And at the same token, even if you do not have a high exposure category, if your job details are considered to be within those details to be high exposure, and I'll give an example. And I always use this example. United States Air Force usually, and I say Air Force because I'm Air Force, supply. Supply is considered to be a very low exposure, but there are duties within the supply job that, let's say, for example, loading C-130, C-141s, C-5s, that you're exposed to the noise of the aircraft. Even though your AFC is considered to be a low exposure, your job duty is considered to be high exposure. So tinnitus is one of those things that, based on your job description, as well as based on your duties, allows you to actually have an easier path to connect. Tinnitus is considered to be a self-diagnosed disability. So it's not something that, let's say, is diagnosed per se by a medical doctor. It is kind of like a presumptive per se. And that's basically ringing of the ear. A lot of people get that confused with loss of hearing. And they're two different disability claims. One is ringing of the ear, and then the other one is loss of hearing. Some veterans can have both in that aspect, but we're talking specifically ringing of the ear. A lot of vets do not know that they have it because they have become used to it. Is their day to day routine of really dealing with it. And I'll use my cousin for example. Will probably kill me right now. He never knew that he had tinnitus until I mentioned it, and now that I mentioned it, that he's a little bit more conscious about it, he's like, "Oh snap! You know, I've been having that for quite a while," and now he acknowledges that he has it. So one of those things, you know, if you sleep with a TV on, or maybe use a fan, or you need some type of noise to actually drown out that white noise sound, then more than likely you have tinnitus. And that's something that could be easily filed. And we can provide that guidance for you to be able to file those claims, to be able to open up or let's say get that service connected and help you to that path in that aspect. And the beautiful thing about tinnitus is even though it's a disability with a low percentage aspect, meaning as in you only get 10% and it cannot be increased, it opens up the door for other secondaries. So for me, in my particular aspect as a coach, I love that tinnitus claim. That is a simple, easy claim to actually file, to be able to create the foundation, to be able to get other disabilities, to justifiably claim secondaries based on the 38 CFR. So, you know, you have to have medical evidence, and at the same token, it has to meet the 38 CFR guidelines as well. You just can't throw a claim for a secondary without it being, uh, let's say, a pathway through the 38 CFR that's justified as a secondary. Uh, but I'll
Yeah.
stop talking. If you have anything to add, Mitch, because I'll keep on going. I'm sorry.
No, you're touching on some good things, Coach Charles. Just to kind of reinforce and bring up some things with the tinnitus, right? Being that secondary, it really is looked at more as when you have that service connection, it's kind of a gateway, right? A gateway to other service connected disabilities you might be dealing with because of the tinnitus, which is a secondary issue, right? So, as Charles said, personally speaking for myself, you know, we all as veterans, we get up every day, right? And we put our shoes on and put our best foot forward and life goes on. But you really, you know, have no choice but to deal with the things you're dealing with in life. And that's for all of us. And with tinnitus specifically, that, you know, for me speaking, is one where, yeah, I knew it, but I didn't put much more thought into it, right? Because I have to get up and go on with my things. Where it personally affected me is the quiet. And for each of us, it's different, right? Those sounds could be ringing or buzzing. But for me, as an example, the quieter it gets, the more apparent it is for me, right? It starts magnifying for me. And it can touch on things like lack of focus for me, right? So sometimes I can have a hard time concentrating if it's really quiet. My wife would look at me when I was in college like, why are you listening to music? And I didn't even realize it, but I'm listening to music while I'm, you know, writing a paper just to keep that drowning that noise out. So just to kind of reinforce what Coach Charles is saying there, you know, tinnitus is a claim that's subjective, and if it's something that you're dealing with, strongly encourage you that be a claim that you file for.
Definitely, and just to add that, you know, a lot of vets don't know that. For example, you know, I sleep with a fan. I sleep with two fans actually. One makes noise and one actually supplies the air. So, you know, these are things that you really have to take a look at. You know, if you find yourself also, you know, like Coach Mitch said, a sense of distraction. I find myself sometimes, or not sometimes, a lot of time reading lips. And the reason why is because that noise is so distracting in my head that I can't really focus on the content of what is being said to me. So by me reading the lips and kind of filling in the gaps of what I am listening to allows me to be able to have a little bit better attention to the individuals that I'm talking to. So, you know, these are things that you really have to take a look. We normalize a lot of these conditions because we just, you know, we're taught to just press on, move on. But once you start thinking about it and really start searching for those markers, so those you start acknowledging, oh wow, you know, I do have this condition, or you know, I am going through these symptoms, and it may be a little bit easier for you to be able to verbalize your symptoms and express what you're going through, you know, in that aspect. Also, And I thank you, Mitch, for all these beautiful notes that you gave me, because it gives me a little bit of direction. But when he was talking about, a good point is the tinnitus. As secondary, there's certain disability that causes tinnitus to make worse, and these are kind of like head and neck conditions can make it worse. Meniere's disease, depression, anxiety, PTSD, TBI, hearing loss, and joint disorder, and high blood pressure. So all these conditions, if you have these conditions, you may want to take a look at it. May be causing your tinnitus to get worse in that aspect, and they can be considered to be. It says if you're thinking about filing tinnitus as a claim as secondaries, they're secondary to those disabilities. And for me, when you have the blood pressure, you might hear that pressure in your ear, that throbbing noise. So it's just a little bit of food for thought for you, for you guys to really start taking a look at your symptoms, because we normalize these things. And sometimes if an arm is not falling off, we really don't pay no mind to it. We just keep on, pressing on. And these are things that affect us, socially. I know with my wife, she says I have selective hearing. And to be quite honest, to me, if my attention is just not there, then basically, I can't concentrate. I have to have utmost focus with whoever I'm talking to. I think I kind of ran that in the hole. I can't use that tinnitus no more, but I try to use it to the best of my ability, and I'm pretty sure other vets do too. How about you, Mitch?
Was that a pro tip there, Coach Charles?
I think you left that in the notes.
So I'll kind of transition onto another disability, right? And I say this one a little more lighthearted to everyone, right? But post-traumatic stress disorder. I'd like to talk about that with you. Many veterans suffering from significant mental health issues that may be service connected for a VA disability. I truly believe in looking back, right? Most veterans that I talk with, most veterans, I think most coaches would tell you that we talk with, are suffering with some kind of mental health symptoms, whether they realize it or not. In addition, mental health conditions are easy VA disability claims to get approved if you have the right documentation on it. Okay. I'm going to speak personally on this. I understand that there's misconceptions out there with mental health. And I think that's speaking for myself directly and being openly and vulnerable with everybody. That's where I felt like a true hypocrite, right? And I share that with you all being vulnerable because I was wrong and I'm willing to admit it. With our mental health, we all deserve to be the best version of us we can be and to be happy. So I do take this, topic near and dear to my heart. I'll tell you there are 31 rateable mental health conditions under law, but 5 of them are really the most common in veterans. One is the PTSD, right? Post-traumatic stress disorder. It can be combat related, non-combat related, and MST, military sexual trauma, okay? There's an adjustment disorder, depression, and somatic symptom disorder. Those are really the top 5 that we see. However, there is 31. Mental health conditions are a high value. High value claims really we define as most veterans who are service connected for their mental health are service connected at a 30% or higher for their mental health, right? Mental health can go as high as 100%. So when you hear us say high value, it really is a claim where it can go as high as 100%. In 2023, mental health conditions can be rated from 0 to 100%. Breaks at 10, 30, 50, and 70%, right? So you can be rated at 0, 10, 30, 50, 70, and 100% for your mental health. Coach Charles, you got anything to touch on this one?
Yeah, I wanted to add some stuff, but I also was taking a look at the chat, and maybe we could answer some questions in that aspect, so then that way we don't fall too far behind. So I was taking a look at Larry Evans. Who can you talk to about filing a tinnitus claim? Please feel free to actually sign up with us, and you will be assigned a coach. They'll be able to walk you through those steps to be able to actually start building the foundation of at least filing that tinnitus claim, to open up some other doors for some other claims as you provide your evidence with us. So please feel free to join us in the elite aspect. and sign up with us, please.
Yeah,
What else
and
do we have here? Okay, go ahead.
no, I would just say, hey, listen, there's going to be a discovery call, right? That's free to everybody, and you should be seeing this on your end. I would really strongly encourage, if you haven't already done so, reach out, do a discovery call, really see how we might be able to help you in a more
Mhm.
personable setting.
Excellent. Now for Jerry Kimberlin, he's basically acknowledging that he also sleeps with two fans, and as he has been given melatonin, he notices that it's continuously getting worse or it's ineffective. So I would really suggest that you voice those concerns to your medical provider, whether it's through your VA or your private provider, because you don't know what those conditions may be or may lead up to something else. And you need to be able to have that medical evidence to back up if that condition, let's say, it leads to something else, you need to have that medical evidence. And that's extremely important in that
Yeah.
aspect. So make sure, we always say here, go to the doctor, go to the doctor. You need to have that medical evidence. You need to have that, at least show that history, the severity and the frequency. That's going to be extremely important because it gives you a greater chance to get service connected as you start making that claim. All right. So for Larry Evans, I already answered his questions. And then for Christopher Roger, I found that hearing loss is a low ball. She should have got 40 in hearing loss and got 20 and 10 for tinnitus. Okay, so basically, it's just a matter of taking a look at the 38 CFR and how they categorize hearing loss. And basically, is the severity of the symptoms, and the tinnitus is separate. So it's just a matter of documenting, going back to Larry Evans. If your condition has gotten worse, go to the doctor. Make sure you have uh, evidence. For William, here same tinnitus, trace of massive headaches and affects sleep apnea. Please feel free and scribe with us here at VA Claims Insider. We can actually give you the tips on how to be able to make that connection or give you that education on how migraines are connected to tinnitus. It is a secondary to tinnitus. So, in order to get some better clarification, please sign up with us. And let me see. I think for Donnie Hunt, who can we talk to the phone calls? I don't know if the phone call should be provided right down for us in our links. So then that way you can feel free to give us a call, have a discovery call, and we can help you out in that aspect. And then basically, I think we are good. I think I caught up. So yeah,
Hey,
we're at PTSD now. All right,
hey,
awesome.
buddy, thank you so much for engaging. We have a lot of questions on here. We'll do our best to answer as many as we can when we're finished.
Correct.
But it's awesome to see. Good job, Coach Charles. Man, they're rocking and rolling with these questions.
Man, that's awesome. It's the for me, it's been a while on the English side, very engaged, and I really enjoy that. For Greg, and do forgive me, Greg G, I'll do it that way. I don't want to slaughter your name. Yeah, feel free to sign up with us. We'll be able to actually explain how to make those connections. Tinnitus does not get an increase once a service connected is at 10%. But like I said, it opens up the doors for other disabilities. It's just a matter of having medical evidence in that aspect. And then for Young, I have tried calling the number on the website, left a message. So if you want, you can take a look at either of our referral links. Feel free to sign up. Usually give us about 24 to 70, what is it, 72 hours to be able to go through the system, and it gets assigned to us, and then we'll be able to reach out with to you. So then that way we can start scheduling a strategy call. So the most important about it, when you do sign up to the Elite program, please go into your insider portal that we provide for you. If you do not follow the process, you cheat yourself. You miss out on a lot of educational resource. It is extremely important. They set it up what I call military format. Keep it simple for us. So as soon as you do one task and you mark it complete, it sends us a notification to show where your progress is at. And that's extremely important, in that aspect. If you don't have no documents, we can't help you because we do not know what you are eligible for. So the documents that are being asked for on the onboarding process is extremely important because then we can move forward to be able to help you. So as soon as you get that, like, and you sign up to the referral, please feel free to once you get the link for the welcome email, please go into your insider portal and start uploading your documents. It's going to save you time and it'll save us time, and we'll be able to take a look exactly at the meat and potatoes of the disabilities that you are eligible for, and and get you to that path of success, which is extremely important.
So Coach Charles, I'll jump onto these presumptives real quick, specifically with presumptive conditions. Let's talk about that. So it is the VA with presumptives, it's presumes, right, to be service connected, even if there is no specific causation or nexus of service connection. Okay, so I feel like it's important to break this down for a second. So when us as veterans, right, we're going for a service connected disability, there's three elements that must be there, right, for all claims for all veterans, right? We have to have a medical diagnosis. We cannot get compensated by law unless we have a medical diagnosis, right? Two, that in-service event. Traditionally speaking, my opinion, that's usually medical records or a specific event that's documented while we were in service. And that third piece is logical rationale, right? That link between our medical diagnosis and our in-service event. With that direct service, that link is really our DD-214, right? Because it puts us on active duty during that time. A presumptive is you and me as veterans being a geographical area during a certain time period. Correct me if I'm wrong, Coach Charles, but for like Gulf War, it's from 1990 on
Correct.
to the present.
It's from 1990 to present. The reason why I know that is because I was looking at some videos, and our great coach Stacy Allen was actually providing that information. That what we consider to be Gulf War, it's technically presumptive, is from 1990 all the way to present, and it's basically based on your theater, your location in theater, your mission, your geographical location, and is considered to be Southwest Asia campaigns. And with the PACT Act, there are some amendments there that actually provides other countries that may not be in that specific theater, but that are considered to be presumptives based on that geographical location. So that is correct.
So why this is important for all of us as veterans, right, with the presumptives, is if you have a medical diagnosis for one of these conditions that are labeled under presumptive, right, then your DD-214 is putting you in that area. That is a service connection claim that you should be filing for. Make sense? So presumptives really is the government looking and saying, hey, we see a high volume of veterans that have came out of these geographical areas that have been exposed and are dealing with in a high rate certain medical conditions. So if you fall under one of those presumptives and you have that diagnosis, that's a claim that you really want to be filing for, and you want to talk with your coach.
Correct. And I wanted to add on top of that, a lot of vets feel that because they were within that particular region, that they automatically qualify. And it's not necessarily accurate. You have to meet other criteria within the presumptive criteria to make that pathway a little bit easier, or of least resistance. And part of the criteria is to be able, after leaving military theater or military service, within a certain time frame, you had to provide some type of medical complaint that you have been, dealing with that issue. At least, at least be registered in that aspect. In comparison, if you're trying to do direct service that's outside of presumptive, you have to show that direct connection in that aspect. So that's the reason why it becomes a little bit easier to actually get these claims, but you have to meet that criteria. If you meet the criteria, then it becomes easier to actually get, let's say, for example, a higher chance of getting service connected based on meeting the criteria. And it's extremely important.
Great point, Coach. Great point. Do you want to, Coach Charles, do you want to touch on gastroesophageal reflux disease, GERD?
Sure. Definitely. I want to also highlight it, something with you mentioned with the PTSD, with the combat, non-combat. A lot of times, just there's a lot of MST that ends up happening that whether you feel that there isn't a pathway because it wasn't documented, I would really suggest to, if you've been able to express these things with your VA provider or your private provider, don't be discouraged. We definitely want you to be heard, and feel free to join us. If you need the women's group, we're there in that aspect, and we have women that'll be able to help you in that aspect, just as men. Judge-free zone. We want to make sure that you get compensated for what you are due for in that aspect. So I just wanted to add that. Now, for GERD, gastroesophageal reflux disease, which a lot of people end up having GERD. The reason why it tends to be an easy claim, or what we consider to be easy, there are multiple reasons. For example, you can do it by direct connection in that aspect. So let's say, for example, you were in a particular theater or whatever it may be, and then for whatever reason, you have a service event, an actual event that for whatever reason, showed that you ended up getting this disability. And it doesn't even have to be outside of country. It could be, within country, even on your regular, base post or whatever it may be. But you have to have a service event. You have to meet the Kaluza Triangle, which is service event, medical diagnosis within 365 days in a nexus. The other one, where it tends to be a little bit more elusive, GERD is not considered to be a presumptive. IBS is. But there are certain factors where sometimes those symptoms can actually tend to overlap each other. So, with the IBS, you may have symptoms that may overlap, and you may be able to get GERD secondary to IBS. So, there's a particular format to be able to get that. And since IBS, the best way that I could explain it in layman terms is IBS is the lower half from the stomach down, and GERD is from the stomach up. So there are certain conditions that overlap or can irritate the other condition. So by that, you have to take a look on how to be able to service connect, and usually you can do that as secondary. As a lot of vets, we end up getting a lot of medication, whether from it's our private provider or as well as the VA. And a lot of times, what we need to take a look is that a lot of these, let's say, for example, medications have a lot of side effects. It helps one condition, but it can create another or aggravate another. So in that particular case, you can do it as secondary to a primary condition. But the only way that it works is that you have to go to the doctor. You have to be able to express and verbalize these things. Remember, we're not in the military anymore. Our bodies are not getting any younger. We've really put them through the grind. So, in that particular aspect, sucking it up and moving on does not help you. It actually is detrimental to you physically and emotionally and psychologically. And to be quite honest, you got to consider your own health as being number one. So, by that being said, make sure that you vocalize and verbalize these things, because GERD, depending on what service connected disabilities you have, it can open up the pathway as GERD being secondary. But you have to have that medical evidence, and there has to be a logical and medical explanation of that pathway. You have anything else to add? And I'm sorry, but I just shot off on that one.
Hey, you're the man, Coach Charles. I love you, brother. Yeah.
Appreciate it.
So just that service connection, right? And we kind of touched on it a little bit ago. Specifically, those three elements, right? That medical diagnosis. Coach Charles is spot on, 100%. Just reinforcing this. Take care of yourself. Make sure you have a medical diagnosis. That in-service event, right? So when it's as a secondary condition, you might have got diagnosed after you got out of service with acid reflux, right? But that means there wouldn't be any documentation on it while you were in service. But what's there instead, as an example for a secondary, might be our mental health, right? Taking medications for our mental health can cause acid reflux. So that in-service event could look at that service-connected disability takes its place. And then that logical rationale we keep talking about in that situation with the secondary, that medical evidence, is that independent medical opinion, or that nexus from a medical provider saying, hey, this medical condition is more likely than not due to this. And that's where it's important as veterans that, number one, you take care of yourself, right? Because you deserve to be happy. Number two, make it, when you do that, you're providing medical evidence supporting your claims. So just for those in the back room that might not have heard what Coach Charles was saying, spot on 100%, sir.
Perfect. And let's go take a look back at some of the questions that we have in the chat. So let's say, for example, what about non-incapacitating episodes pertaining to sinusitis? Could you explain this with a scenario or illustration? Basically, sinusitis is considered to be one of the presumptives, disabilities on the list. So it's a matter of meeting the criteria that you have been able to maybe go to the doctor and be able to make that complaint, and then from there basically start building evidence. Frequency and duration is going to be very important. So if you've gone to the doctor multiple times for sinus issues and is registered, that's going to be able to help you in that aspect to have a stronger case. So I would highly suggest, every case is individualistic, it's individual. So I suggest to really sign up so you can get actual get educated by a coach in your particular case itself. I don't want to give any type of scenario, and I don't want anybody to assume that is to their case and pertaining. Every case is different in that aspect. I think the other one is, what about the PACT Act in regards to the burn pits? How do the doctors and raters use the PACT Act with a current diagnosis and disability? And it goes back to Coach Mitch. You want to reiterate in reference towards the PACT Act of more or less how the raters actually use that and the aspect.
Yeah, so specifically when it comes to the PACT Act, right, or with presumptives in general, they've identified medical conditions where there's a high rate of veterans that have came out of those geographical areas with these issues, right? So specifically, each claim that you submit, for an example, I'm just going to use this GERD, right, can rate from 0 to 60%, where IBS might rate differently. Each diagnosed condition that we have is rated differently, and it's really on your symptoms and knowing them. So when you ask specifically how do the doctors rate us for it, it is us as veterans, in my opinion, sure Coach Charles will agree with me, being able to understand our symptoms and being able to speak to what we deal with determines how they rate us for that specific disability.
And I wanted to add to that, because that's very important what you said. A lot of times we kind of know what we're going through, but we don't know how to verbalize that. And that's going to be very important, because if you can't verbalize it, nobody else can. So it's a matter of really acknowledging that you have the symptom as the first step. That's very important. And a lot of times as veterans, we just suck it up and move on. I got other things that I got to do. They're more pressing. And we never really take that time to kind of do a quick self-check, like a quick PMCS of ourselves, to be able to figure out, what's going on, what ails us, and so forth. So that's extremely important, to self-diagnose ourselves and start understanding what we're going through and educate ourselves. That's why we're here, to be able to educate you on how to verbalize those symptoms. So as you go through the CMP process and the disability claims to the VA, you be able to be more successful, because you have the tools to be able to explain yourself correctly and articulate yourself accurately.
Speaking to your truths,
Yeah.
and a lot of us too, as human beings, maybe even, right? I like to say veteran because, we're all veterans here, but just in general, if Coach Charles hits me up and he's like, "Hey, Mitch, how you doing today?" And honest talk, everyone, if I'm having a bad day, right? Y'all know what I'm going to say to him. "Hey, Coach Charles, I'm not feeling so well, but I'm good."
Mm-hmm.
Right? I'm going to try to cut off that conversation or minimize what's going on with me, right? Because once again, we get up every day and we have life to live, and put things to the back burner, whatever that case may be. In that example I give, I would tell you that I can be my own worst, enemy, right?
Yeah.
Self-inflicted. And that's really what it's like when you're talking about your conditions and knowing them, is being able to really speak to your symptoms and what's going on and what that looks like for you.
And I'm glad that you mentioned that. You hit something that stood out to me, is, where we end up talking to other people and we give a response, "Hey, how you doing?" "Oh, I'm good." And we tend to brush that off. As veterans, we have a tendency of creating self-isolation, it's part of mental health in that aspect. We don't verbalize those things, and we, like Mitch said, we become our worst enemies. in that aspect. So, the best thing that you can do, and, it may take time, but be free to verbalize what you feel. And if those first steps starts with your doctor, please do so. So then that way you can start creating medical evidence in a paper trail. You know, just also to add, there's a whole bunch of questions in reference towards PACT Act. We can actually be on here for hours. The best thing that I can suggest is feel free, subscribe, sign up to the elite program, be able to provide your medical evidence so you're able to explain what your situation is so we can more or less educate you and help you figure out what is the game plan for you to be able to attack it and provide you with a good strategy.
Do a free discovery call at the least. It's free, right? Talk
Hmm.
with one of our coaches here, talk with some of the personnel we have here, see how we might be able to help you out.
Definitely. And I believe, let me see, percentage for Mark Sterling went to the medical. Uh, there's a lot of information here. The best thing that I can tell you, veterans, is please feel free. The discovery call doesn't cost you anything. The program doesn't cost you anything. If we don't win, you don't pay. So we are definitely in the path. We are a company of success, but you also have to put in that effort as well. Provide, the documentation so we were able to help you and be able to provide that assessment. Most of all, take care of yourself, which is the most important thing. If you don't take care of yourself, you won't be able to actually move forward in that aspect. As a veteran, you deserve it. You sacrificed your time, put your life on the line to be able to provide this freedom. And now that you're here in the civilian aspect, you have to take care of yourself. That's the most important, aspect.
Hey, Coach Charles, there's a question that keeps getting brought up a few times on here.
Sure.
It's in reference to hearing, right?
Correct.
And tinnitus. And I just would like to touch on that if you don't mind.
Sure.
So a lot of us can sometimes get the two mixed up, right? With the tinnitus and the hearing loss. That tinnitus is that noise, our brain being exposed, where it's subjective, where we're hearing that noise in our ears. Where hearing loss is really hearing loss, right? So there are two different disabilities. And with hearing loss, it can be really hard to hear this, right? But hearing loss is extremely hard to get compensated for, okay? It can be hard because, number one, as we get older, it's a natural progression, right, for us to lose hearing, right? Number two, when you're looking at hearing loss in our time in service, you might get service connected for it, but in order to be compensated for it, you really almost have to be deaf, right? It can be hard to hear, but the VA will give you hearing aids, and the hearing aids help your hearing. So that's where I just feel like a lot of veterans can get frustrated with the hearing loss because they know, hey, I have hearing loss, but it's not at that level to where I should be compensated. And I have hearing aids that work or don't work for me, but that really is how they look at it, right? So if you have hearing loss and you're service connected, you'll have you can be provided hearing aids, which is an advantage. If your hearing loss isn't to the point where you're really on the verge of being deaf, you're probably not going to be compensated for hearing loss, more than likely, in my opinion.
Yeah, and like Coach Mitch said, hearing loss is measurable. Based on the hearing tests, they can measure that. Tinnitus is basically, it's presumed based on what you explain what your symptoms are. So that's the reason why we stated earlier that it's kind of self-diagnosed. It's not something that they can actually measure. One has to do with the white noise in the back, in the background where you hear it in your head, and then the other one is that you can't hear anything. You can be literally deaf and have tinnitus. And like Coach Mitch said, you have to be extremely severe or beyond severe to get an extreme or a very high rating in hearing loss. So that's extremely important to understand and differentiate both. Even though they have to do within the same local area, they're two different disabilities. All right, we got 15 minutes to go, so let's talk about IBS. So IBS is irritable bowel syndrome. And basically, like I mentioned before, the symptoms can overlap with GERD. That's the reason why it's extremely important that we always say go to the doctor. The doctor is the one that has to provide that diagnosis and give his medical opinion. But IBS can be from direct service connection. Uh, let's say, for example, something that might happen in a direct event that caused you irritable bowel syndrome. That's an easy way to connect. You can also get it connected secondary to whatever medications you may have. But of course, like I'm stating, a doctor has to provide that medical evidence, that pathway, to be able to show that whatever medications you're having is causing you to have these symptoms. And then you can get that as secondary to medications that you're having. And also, IBS falls under presumptives. So, in that aspect, irritable bowel syndrome, and it goes back to based on the geographical location, it is assumed or presumed or based on the data that there's a high volume of these disabilities coming from these particular vets leaving this particular region. And that's based on the data, and that's would be under presumptive, which you would have to meet, of course, those requirements for the presumptive. Once you're able to meet the presumptive requirement, then it opens up the path, which will create less resistance to be able to service connect. But once again, we fall back to the 38 CFR. Just because it's under presumptive doesn't mean automatic connection. You still have to do the diagnosis to be able to provide, because certain conditions do get better. So therefore, you have to provide a current, diagnosis to show that that condition is still active or progressively gotten worse. And then you have to provide a nexus letter. A nexus letter is that more or less that bridge showing that your disability, uh, uh, more than likely, yes than not, was incurred due to service. And that's extremely important. And that's the reason why we say that these disabilities are the easy disabilities to go after. I think it's easier said than done because we're looking at it from our perspective in that aspect. And I know a lot of vets are frustrated because maybe they do not have, let's say, for example, the proper tools to be able to move forward. And that's why we always highly suggest for the veterans to join us. You know, join the elite program, get educated, be successful in your own path for these disability claims. Own it, make it yours.
Yeah, Coach Charles, and just to touch on that, there's some great questions in here, right? But just on your topic here specifically, at the end, Thomas C put, my VA doctor treats me for asthma but won't diagnose. How do I get them to diagnose? Thomas, I'll tell you, like,
That's a trigger one.
man, here's the army in me, Thomas. Forgive me, right? But it's a great question. As a client going to a doctor, in my mind, I look at it as, hey, I come to you, I tell you what's going on with me, you diagnose me, and you treat me. When you're in that situation, the best advice I can give you, where they're not giving you a diagnosis and they're treating you, is to ask them, well, why are you treating me for this?
Mm-hmm.
To put them on the spot to diagnose you. If you're gonna, and I'm not a doctor, I want to be 100% clear here, but I've definitely been in very similar situations where I've had to look and go, hey, you're sending me to physical therapy. Why are you sending me to physical therapy? To get that diagnosis. So I don't think you're doing anything wrong by asking them, well, if you're treating me, why are you treating me? What's the condition you're treating me for? I hope that answers that question. At least I hope I gave you some good advice there. Liz Bull put on here, loud noises, lots of people affect my husband, Coach Charles. He goes into high alert. Does this fall into any condition?
Yes, it actually, going back, and thank you for pointing out that question, Coach Mitch, to answer the veteran. In that aspect, when he feels that mental health falls under secondary. So those symptoms may be part of mental health, the heightened alert, the irritability and so forth. And that's the reason why tinnitus is such an important claim, at least in my eyes, even though it's a low value, because it creates a base, it creates a foundation to be able to transition to another disability as a secondary. So it's extremely important to be able to know these conditions, understand your symptoms, be able to verbalize them and vocalize them so you can try to, not try to, be educated so you can try to have a higher success rate as you do your disability claims. And it's extremely important. So that's the reason why I was stating before, it's extremely important to educate yourself in this process because it's not a simple process. That's the reason why we're here, to be able to empower you with the tools necessary to become extremely successful in this path. So once again, and I keep reiterating, please, um, you know, let's say subscribe, or not even subscribe to the YouTube, but please feel free to sign up with VA Claims Insider. One of our coaches will be more than happy to help you and be able to give you that education and that tool so you can have at least a better chance of success. That's very important for us.
Serving our veterans. There's no bigger blessing to be in this spot.
That is
So,
correct.
so a lot of people ask, and it looks like this is top rank investing. How long does it take to get an increased decision after the CMP exam?
Good question.
It is, and I get asked these questions a lot. I'm sure you do too, Coach. The truth is, there's no direct answer, right? I wish I could tell you, hey, it's exactly 90 days, or something along those lines. On average, between 100 and 120 days is probably the average, right? Would you agree, Coach Charles? 120?
Yeah, it could be 120, 6 months. There's so many different factors that, first of all, is the caseload of that particular regional office, also the caseload of the individual that received your case, in that aspect. It also depends on the evidence that you have provided. Also, your case in particular, for example, if they really have to take a look into your case, and really, find out those connections may take a little longer in that aspect. So there's so many factors that go into it that's very hard. Now with the PACT Act, the vast amount of applications that have been submitted, and the VA trying to keep up with the amount of applications, you may see times that are longer than normal. It's one of those things that you have to be patient. At the same token, you have to be proactive. It was going back to what Mitch said in reference towards, with the diagnosis. When the VA actually treats you but not gives you a diagnosis, I wanted to more or less state, use your VA.gov portal. It's very important. That messaging is a great tool, whether it's to find out in reference towards your claims, or if you're asking in reference towards your medical condition. And I go back to what Mitch said, if you are being treated for something, feel free to use it. That tool is there for you to ask the doctor what you're getting treated for, to be able to actually have something at least electronically documented by messaging, if that information is provided for you, so you can use it as you move forward for your claim process. So back to what Mitch said, time is really undetermined. We don't know. Usually there should be a timely fashion, about 180 days, but every case is different.
And it's tough too, right? Because especially our backgrounds and knowing the government here, speaking for us all collectively, vets, like we're used to getting that, hey, regulation states this, right? I'm like one of those people, I'm going to go look, hey, what does it regulatory say? There is no specific timeline. That is the truth. Mm-hmm. So you could be, a person where you find out, 30 days from now after you submit, or it could be 6 months in there. Be aggressive with your claim, know where you're at and what step you're at in it, and, constantly check. I'm going to go on to a couple other questions here, Coach Charles. I don't know where the time flies, sir, but it flies when we get together. So a claim for GERD doesn't need a lot of documentation other than sick call visits, from Mark Powell. So really, your time in service to answer that, right? You always need a diagnosis, Mark, right? To be clear. But those symptoms you're speaking about from your time in service, you might or might not have known at that time, hey, this was GERD. But later on, you were diagnosed with, gastrointestinal reflux disease, right? Well, those symptoms there make it easier to do that connection for it, because you were speaking to those symptoms there. You might need a nexus, that logical, it depends for each veteran, the situation we're in. But you might need that medical evidence still, which could be a nexus saying, hey, Mark has GERD, and he's got these symptoms from back, while he was on active duty service, it's more than likely from that time in service. So it really varies on case by case. I can't go specifically into each personal, example because I don't know everyone's circumstances here, but that's a great way when you're talking with your coach to really talk about what's going on for you in that example and what evidence you do have to provide to give you the best advice.
All right, I have two things that I wanted basically on questions. I can't find the name. Okay, Rufus Coleman. When is the next time? Every Wednesday, 11 o'clock Central Time, 12 Eastern, and of course, adjust at every time frame based on your app. But we go based on Central Time, 11 every Wednesday. And also for Angel Romero, his question is: I signed up with an attorney before I found out about VACI, but I am very interested in working with VACI. Would it be a conflict with working with the VACI and an attorney? Personally, I think that that's very delicate because what's going to end up happening is that we provide you with resources for you to be able to educate yourself in the process so you can have the ownership of your claim. You're not lost in the sauce like an attorney will do it for you and you don't know what step you are in the process. Or let's say, for example, you're not able to vocalize the attorney is not able to vocalize your symptoms when it comes to the CMP. Here, we educate you in that aspect that how to vocalize your symptoms, how to understand your symptoms, and how to be able to move forward in a successful path to be able to get that disability service connected or a higher chance. So, in my personal opinion, yes, it would be a conflict of interest because when it comes down to figuring out, well, who you render, payment to, you may be obligated by both. So that's something that you may want to consider before you sign up with us. And I'd rather just be honest and transparent. I definitely don't want you to feel that you're being billed here as well as being billed with your attorney. So if that's something that you want to take a look at your options. And if you feel that it's better to move with us, we'll welcome you here with open arms and we'll be excited to help you move forward and to get you an increase in that aspect. So for Tonio Espinosa, how hard is it to service connect OSA as secondary to major depression, anxiety, and insomnia? That's very delicate, and I have about 2 minutes to explain. So you have to take a look at OSA, or sleep apnea is considered by the 38 CFR obstruction of your nasal and esophageal passage. When it comes down to major depression, anxiety, insomnia, that's psychological. So there is no really direct connection, but there may be connection due to the fact that, let's say, for example, if you have medication and it's caused you to gain weight or fluctuate in weight, that may be a reason to go down the path of sleep apnea. Sleep apnea is not easy connection to make secondary to PTSD or mental health because one's physiological and one's psychological. But if you have, let's say, presumptive sinusitis, rhinitis, asthma, anything that has to do with respiratory issue, because sleep apnea is considered to be respiratory, then that's an easier path to go down and actually make that service connection in that aspect. So I think we are at the top of the hour, 1 o'clock, and time went pretty fast.
Hey, veterans, thank you so much for being here and taking time out of your day to spend with Coach Charles and me. We appreciate you. We want to thank you for your service. I would tell you, if you're not part of VA Claims Insider or VACI, do a discovery call at the least. It doesn't hurt you none. See how we might or might not be able to help you out. I wish you all, safe travels in your day. Be safe. Coach Charles, I'll leave you with the last comment, sir.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate it. And I want to tell every veteran here, thank you very much. Muchas gracias. For all those vets that, let's say, for example, English is not their primary language and Spanish is, please feel free. Join us. We do have various coaches that do speak the language and are able to help you. We want to be able to hit every community possible within our veteran community. We want to make sure that we are all family and that we consider ourselves to be family and be able to actually push that narrative forward as we continue. We don't want to leave nobody behind, like we say, nobody's left behind. So with that being said, want to tell you guys, love you guys very much. I truly appreciate you guys taking 1 hour of your time to listen to us and provide you with this informative information. And with that being said, God bless. Talk to you soon. See you on the next one. Bye-bye.